ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the lair of the Film Exorcist. Tonight, we'll be doing one of my favorite Star Wars TV series to get the bad taste out of our mouths from last week's Droids episode. Ugh. Tonight, we will be doing Star Wars Rebels, Disney's very first Star Wars TV show, and actually one of their best so far to date. And it's definitely way better than Droids. Not as good as Clone Wars, but really good. Basically, it's a story taking place between episodes 3 and 4, during the start of the creation of the Rebel Alliance. We follow a crew on a VC cruiser named the Ghost, and we've got our characters: the Brute, Zeb; the Jedi, Kanan, also known as Caleb Dune; we've got Ezra the Padawan and Thief; we've got the artist, our Mandalorian, Sabine Wren; we've got the pilot, Hera Syndulla; and we've got the droid. Personally, one of my favorites, Chopper, who is amazing in this movie. Basically, they go on all kinds of adventures. We also meet a whole lot of Clone Wars characters, and characters we may not know, or mostly know from the original canon, the extended universe, and the original trilogy. We get a lot of old designs, old crafts that we haven't seen for years, and it's amazingly done. It is just, and it comes all together later on. As our creator, we have Simone Kimberg, Dave Filoni, and Carrie Beck. Composed by Kevin Keener, produced by Kiri Hart, Athena Yvette Portillo, and Carrie Beck. And onto our cast. We have Taylor Gray as Ezra Bridger, Freddie Prinze Jr., a really good actor in this case, who plays Kanan Jarrus, aka Caleb Dune, who's also known for roles like Ray Bronson in I Know What You Did Last Summer, and its sequel, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Fred Jones in the Scooby-Doo trilogy. Well, not trilogy. The first movie and the sequel, Monsters Unleashed. And he's Future Jim and Future Tim in Kim Possible, A Stitch in Time. A really good Kim Possible movie if you haven't seen it. We also have Vanessa Marshall as Hera Syndulla, and I hope you guys know that name from the Clone Wars. It's the Ryloth leader who fights with Mace Windu, and you get to see him in this series. But she's also known for Erwin in The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, Gwen's alien forms in Ben 10, Mary Jane Watson, Hermia, and Rosie Thompson in The Spectacular Spider-Man, and Tiffany Kristen Seexy in Symbiotic Titan, a really good old Cartoon Network show that they sadly canceled because Cartoon Network is created by idiots these days. We have Tia Sarkar as Sabine Wren, also known for a role as Samantha in 17 again, Marianne in Hotel for Dogs, and Nah Patil in The Internship. We also have Stephen Blum as Garzeb Zeb Aurelius, also known as Spike Spiegel in Cowboy Bebop, ladies and gentlemen. We have Mugen in Samurai Champloo, Orochimaru and Zabuza Momochi in Naruto and Naruto Shippuden, Kyoshiro Tohado in Code Geass, and Liren Littner in Gurren Lagann, Kyohei Kadota in Durarara, Smitus in My Life as a Teenage Robot, Jamie in Megas XLR, Vilgax, Heat Blast, and Ghost Freak in Ben 10, Green Goblin and the Chameleon, and others in the Spectacular Spider-Man, which I love Cowboy Bebop, so this is a huge, huge thing for any of you guys, any of you anime fans that know any of these shows. Dave Filoni is Chopper, D. Bradley Baker is back as Captain Rex, and Commander Gregor, and Commander Wolf. And onto the longest moment of our show tonight. We have the favorite episodes. We're going to go by each season, so let's get to it. Season 1, Spark of the Rebellion, which is basically what shows us what we're getting into, gives us a big idea of how we're going to see each of these characters grow, and it brings them all together in one episode. Next is Breaking Ranks, which is the Academy episode. It was masterfully done, and we've never even gotten to see an actual scene inside of an Imperial Academy, so this gives us that. And I enjoyed all the training scenes that Ezra has to go through with his new friends. We also have Path of the Jedi, which it's Ezra's very first lightsaber, and it's the first time we hear Yoda in this TV show. And it was interesting to learn that there was a Jedi temple on Lothal, and supposedly Jedi temples on many planets. I mean, we already knew about Jedha and Ilum, but we never knew about this one, and it's just very informational. And lastly, for Season 1, Fire Across the Galaxy. It's the death of the Grand Inquisitor, the start of the darkest part of the series. It just gets us to understand that pretty soon we're going to gain Darth Vader, and they are pulling out all the stops. If there's a villain, they are going to kill him. If there is a main character, they will not hesitate to surprise their audience with what they end up doing. And this was the episode to get us started with the whole idea. Season 2 is the Siege of Lothal. First time in canon we see an Imperial defector, or try to. Sadly, our defector ends up dying by explosion, and we get our very first glimpse of how harsh Vader truly can be when he orders the Imperials and the Stormtroopers to burn down Tarkin Town and have the governor or the minister murdered, and how he takes out a whole squadron of A-Wings on his own and almost defeats Kanan and Ezra, and almost literally kills Ezra with his own lightsaber. And my god, Darth Vader in this episode was pretty much a fucking badass when we watched that those tanks fall onto him and he just gets up like nothing happened. Then we have the Lost Commanders and Relics of the Old Republic. They're 2 episodes, but I'm counting them as one because they're basically the same story. This is the first time we see the old clones, Gregor, Rex, and Wolf, back in action, and it gives us a taste of how Clone Wars heavy the rest of the season would be. I mean, this is not going to be the first time we see characters from the Clone Wars or weapons from the Clone Wars, and it actually was funny how the clones were way smarter than Stormtroopers and were able to outmaneuver them and take out 2 AT-ATs at the same during their battle, after also taking out a big Jupa, which sadly they never get to eat, but turns out the old tech can be a lot better than new tech. Then we've got Stealth Strike. I was debating on putting this, but then I realized if I didn't, I'd be a bit sad. It's the first time many people were introduced to the very first Imperial Interdictor, and the first time Rex and Kanan actually get along. They actually fight together, and Kanan actually goes back and saves Rex. I've known about the Interdictor for a long time. I've played Empire at War, and from what I know, that's the only time I've seen an Interdictor, and now we finally get to see it in action, and we get to see the first time it is put into action as a weapon for the Empire. And guys, this will not be the last time we see these, and it's a really nostalgic moment. We also have a Princess on the Thal, which is the very first time we see Leia in a cartoon for this series, and we get to finally see her in action. I mean, we do get that scene in episode 4 where she stuns that one stormtrooper, but that's about it from the fourth movie, and everything else is she either gives orders or a few times she actually does do something, but she's more of a politic. Here, she's given us more action, and it's the first look we have of the Hammerhead Corvettes since the Old Republic games, which this was a big capital ship for the Old Republic during those games, and they brought it back here and we get to see it in Rogue One, but this is the very first time we get to see it, and it shows they're bringing back Legends material into canon. We also have the Forgotten Droid, which is the first Chopper adventure, and the first time we meet an Imperial droid defector. And the droid was turns out the droid was from the Clone Wars. He was fighting during the same battle, which was the Battle of Ryloth. He works with Chopper, and it's actually a really funny episode with Chopper beating down stormtroopers and the cargo ship commander with a mechanical leg. And it's actually a very sweet moment when he gives up a part of the leg to save his new friend, which turns out Chopper does have a heart. Then we've got our last episode for Season 2, which is Twilight of the Apprentice. This one got me when I first watched it. It's the return of Darth Maul, and it's the very first time we see a Sith super weapon and Malachor 5 in this series. We have not seen it since the little clip show in Knights of the Old Republic, where we watched the mass shadow generator destroy half the planet during the Mandalorian Wars. But here we also get our very first Sith super weapon, which turns out to be a bit. We actually don't even get to see what it does, but I mean, hopefully someday it will be shown in a canon version of the Old Republic. You hear me, Disney? Get on it. And it's the battle between Darth Vader and Ahsoka, and it's actually really touching because we know these two, we've known them throughout the Clone Wars, and they were Master and Padawan, and it's hard watching these two fight, and it just broke my heart as soon as she cuts his helmet, and we get to hear Anakin's voice through the scene, and then it was gratefully done, and it was heartbreaking watching a Master and Padawan fight after she left and he turned into Darth Vader. It just caught me off guard. Steps into the shadow for Season 3. It sets the tone a lot darker for the series, and it's the first time we meet both Governor Price for the very first time. I mean, we've heard everything about her. We've heard a lot about her, but this is the first time we've seen her. And if you guys don't notice, she kind of reminds me of the Russian commander from the Crystal Skull. So one day I'm going to look that up, and I wonder, is that the exact same actor? If you know, please let me know in the comments. But yeah, Ezra cuts his hair and he starts using the Force in a darker manner. He starts learning from the Dark Holocron, and it just changes him a lot. And he starts killing a lot of stormtroopers. I mean, we've seen them get killed, but never with the lightsaber by a Jedi. It's getting a whole lot darker. And it's the first episode we meet Bendu and the Grand Admiral Thrawn from Legends. He comes back and he's as great as I imagined. We also see the Rebellion's very first Y-Wing bomber and how they acquired them. And we also see what happened to Commander Titus after the interdictor incident. So if you guys remember, Titus was the blonde-haired commander on the interdictor right when it blew up, and he escaped. And it turns out, if you screw up on something as big as that, they'll demote you down to command center or refinery commander or chief, which is actually pretty funny. And we get to see this a lot in the show, a lot of demotions, and I love it. But and again, we get to see the Y-Wings. They're supposed to be the exact ones from the original, from the Clone Wars, but they look a whole lot different, and I love it. Next is the Antilles extraction, which is, we finally get to see Wedge Antilles' final days in the Imperial Academy and as a pilot, and how he was defected to the Rebel Alliance. And it was an exciting episode to watch, and it was the episode where we witnessed Agent Callus's very first act as Fulcrum. And at the time, a lot of us didn't know he was Fulcrum, but we knew that this is how he was repaying Zeb for saving his life on the moon of Geonosis. And I've always wondered, we've seen it in comics how Wedge defected, but now we actually get to see what happened. The final battle during this episode, we actually get to see one of the last remaining remnants of the droid army. I mean, you can see it in games like Battlefront 2, where we watched Gizor Delso's army on Mustafar, and you can even see it on some of the mods for Empire at War. But on top of that, we also got to see how they compare to the Empire when fighting with the Rebellion and not against them, not against Rex. I mean, it was at first a war game episode, but then it turned into a big battle and the start of a new ship for the Ghost crew. I mean, they still have the Ghost, but now they have the Phantom too. And lastly, we get a lot of the old tactics that we didn't notice in the Clone Wars, but we actually witnessed a lot of. right, the sword and shield method. And trust me guys, Season 3, this list is going to be really long. We also have the Wanakahatul Job, which is a fun heist episode, which involved everyone's favorite pirate from the Clone Wars and everyone's least favorite, Fat Slimo, as they attack a slowly sinking Imperial cargo cruiser and end up getting attacked by a few sentry droids that look pretty familiar or heavily reminiscent of the Phase 3 Dark Troopers in Legends content, which was actually a pretty cool add-on to the series. Next is Ghosts of Geonosia Part 1 and Part 2, which, for anyone like me who has played the Imperial campaign on Empire at War, you probably already know what happened to the Geonosians. But now this episode shows us kind of how barren Geonosis looks, and that it turns out not all of them were killed during the mass genocide, or not all of them were captured and made slaves for the Death Star. And this is one of the only times that only of two times that we actually get to see Saw Gerrera between the Clone Wars and Rogue One, and it shows us the last time he actually fights with the Rebellion as a soldier. And as a bonus, we get to finally see the new canon jet troopers, which was pretty cool, and they're actually pretty heavily used in this series in the next few episodes and seasons. But on top of that, let's get back to Saw Gerrera. I mean, in this episode, he's still heavily impacted by his sister's death, and it just causes a ripple between his cell and the many cells that are in charge of the Rebel Alliance, and it shows why he's on Jedha. Kind of. I mean, we actually get to see the Geonosian, I mean, in the symbol on the ground he's drawing. If anyone caught that, it's actually the Death Star. A circle inside of a circle is the Death Star, and it's a pretty cool explanation to what happened to the Geonosians if you have not played the game. Next, and the second to last episode, Secret Cargo, which I honestly loved this episode for its masterful work with showing how powerful the TIE Defender was. I mean, again, it's a ship brought back from the Legends era where it looks exactly the same and just as powerful, but here we actually get to see the shields and the weapons put to a test against the Ghost crew, and sadly it does not last in the nebula. I believe it does make it back to the Imperial cruiser, but sadly until now we've only seen it in Legends, or in video games. And yeah, this isn't the first time we've seen it. We did actually get to see it in the schematics for the episode where they do go to the factory and find out what the new weapon is. But this is the one where we actually get to see it in combat. We also have a few great scenes with Senator Mon Mothma, the star of the episode. And lastly, we are shown the third biggest canon rebel fleet from what we know so far, and I'm not counting the Resistance fleet or any other ones in Legends. It's the canon one next to Rogue One's fleet and the fleet in episode 6. And Lastly, for Season 3, we have Twin Sons. It's a wonderful episode that shows you don't always need to have a mission with the Ghost Crew or a big space battle. All you really need, guys, is a great ending to a long-standing story. This is the episode where we see the end of the conflict between Darth Maul and Obi-Wan, who have been through so much since Episode 1. I mean, Maul's lost his legs many times, he's regrown them, and Obi-Wan's lost Duchess Satine in the Clone Wars, the love of his life, and it's just, this is a huge, long-awaited episode, and it was gratefully done. And to quote sick puppies, it's been a long time coming, and it's finally happened, because one of them had to go down for this to end. And it's actually given at the very end, we get a huge connection to A New Hope, with Aunt Beru calling out to Luke as he stares off into the Binary Suns, exactly like Episode 4. Season 4, Heroes of Mandalore, with Part 1 and Part 2. This episode, guys, made me feel sorrow and fear as soon as I saw what the Empire's new weapon can really do. I now understand why Sabine left, and why she destroyed the plans. We've heard Sabine mention many times that her weapon was dangerous, but until we saw it obliterate a squad of Mandalorians from the inside, it turned out we never really understood or comprehended how powerful it was. I mean, literally, it eats them through just because of their armor and just because they're Mandalore, and actually it's gratefully used against the stormtroopers right before it's destroyed by Sabine, along with the plans, or the final plans. And in the end of this episode, we finally get to see the many clans of Mandalore rise up and unite under Bo-Katan, Duchess Satine's younger sister, and it's been long awaited to see. I've always wanted to see the Mandalorians end their civil war and come together to fight against the Empire. Next is In the Name of the Rebellion, Part 1 and Part 2, our second episode with Saw Gerrera, which gives us a bit of an explanation on why Saw created his base on Jeddah, and it turns out they actually listened to us and used the Kyber Crystal idea from the unfinished episodes of the Clone Wars, which was a wonderful callback. I mean, if you've guys seen the unfinished episodes, the episode on Utapau where Anakin and Obi-Wan find the Kyber Crystal and use it against the droids, and it blows up the factory and the crystal, that is what we get here, and I'm glad we finally got something from the unfinished episodes, and actually, we're going to see a lot from the unfinished concepts, or a lot of the concepts from the entire Star Wars franchise. Next, we have the Rebel Assault, which is the episode that starts out really great with the Rebels' attempt to bomb the TIE Defender factory, which sadly ends in failure. But during the space battle, we do get a chance to see Hera masterfully outmaneuver Volt Scaris in an X-Wing while he's in his own gold TIE Defender, and we get to see she uses the blast from the Chimera's turrets to take out his shields, and then she turns off her Lock-S foils and shoots him down into a light cruiser, which in turn takes out a Star Destroyer, causing a chain reaction. So, this is what happens when you don't listen to Thrawn, which we saw in the finale of Season 3 with Constantine when he was destroyed by... Constantine when he was destroyed by Sato. And lastly, we get to see Hera fight Rook and almost beat him. I mean, damn, Twi'leks can fight. I mean, I knew they were almost elastic from episode 6 when we watch Ula dance, but wow, if she had the chance and if those tanks didn't appear, I think she could have actually killed him. Next, people, this is the episode that hit me really hard in Season 4, Jedi Knight. Now, similar to the finale of Season 2, we have a scene similar to Ahsoka's, where we watch Kanan give his life to save the rest of the crew from an explosion right after he has a very touching moment with Hera, and they share their love together for the very first time. This moment hits even harder as we also see Kanan regain his vision. By that, I mean we get to see him regain the turquoise in his eyes, which reignites his vision right before he's killed by the blast. And to mourn the loss, and this was gratefully done, the title scene from the ending of the episode and the opening of the next episode is white and turquoise with no sound to mourn the loss of the Ghost Crew, which, guys, this was the episode that they made it clear they are not above killing one of their main characters, and it's really hard to watch. I literally felt a lump in my throat as I watched this, and I'm feeling it right now because I'm actually tearing up on camera right now. Next is the World Between Worlds, which I do like the episode Wolves and a Door, which is the episode that came before her. But I love the episode before for its use of the moving artwork to create a doorway into the world beyond worlds. But I enjoyed this one a lot more. It gave us a new view of the Star Wars universe as a whole. Technically a lot of people would call this time travel, and if you go through a door you can mess with time, but it also answers a long asked question: what happened to Ahsoka? We learn that she does survive Vader's confrontation because of Ezra, and it was her who ends up going back into the temple at the end of Twilight of the Apprentice. And we also witness a most impressive cameo from Ian McDiarmid as the Emperor in this episode, and the next one we're about to mention, which, guys, is the very last episode of the series and of Season 4. It is Family Reunion and a Farewell, Part 1 and 2. It was a beautiful ending to a great story. It brought together everyone who has previously helped the Ghost Crew into one large attack force, which was well utilized. And in the end, we get to see where everyone ended up after Lothal is finally free, and the Empire will never attack Lothal again, because they know what happens when they attack the home of the Ghost Crew. I was glad I watched this episode, but it did leave me with a lot of questions that I cannot wait to learn the answers to. Like, 1, where's Ezra, and where is Thrawn? So far, right now, we did hear they may be in Episode 9. It is a concept, and I cannot wait to hear. And God, I'm also wondering what happened to Ahsoka and why she's in the ropes. But we may never know. If we do, I'll gladly hear the answer, and I hope it's as good as this episode. But guys, onto the facts. The visual style was heavily inspired by the original Star Wars concept art by Ralph McQuarrie. The design of Zeb is based on an early concept art for Chewbacca, minus the stripes. The first season takes place 14 years after Revenge of the Sith and 5 years before A New Hope, and each season is 6 months apart. The Imperial troop transports are based on a vehicle from the original Kenner toy line from the late 70s for A New Hope. The animated movies of Hayao Miyazaki were a major influence for the show. Lothal's capital city was actually modeled after an early concept art for Bespin and Alderaan. Chopper is supposed to be the complete opposite of R2-D2, and that's kind of why I love him. I love R2-D2 too, but Chopper's more my speed. He's like the darker and goofier end of R2-D2. Ezra Bridger was actually born on a day before Luke and Leia, which was the actual day that the Empire became official and was instated. Kanan was blinded by a lightsaber as a callback to Ram Koda in Star Wars The Force Unleashed. There was a cameo from Wolf Yalrin, who served as Anakin's fleet admiral during the Clone Wars, and who can also be seen in the room with Darth Vader and all the other commanders in Episode 4. And Ezra was inspired by Ralph Macchio from The Karate Kid. Kanan was influenced by Bill Mooney, Clint Eastwood's character in Unforgiven. Sabine was actually born a year after the Battle of Geonosis. Lars Mikkelsen, who played Grand Admiral Thrawn in this series, is actually the brother of Mads Mikkelsen, who played Galen Erso in Rogue One. Starkiller actually almost was put into Season 2, but I believe instead they put Ahsoka in his place to give us kind of a big connection to the Clone Wars. The pilot droids in this series are actually RX-24 Rex droids, actually made because of Captain Rex from Star Tours, and I find it very funny. They're in a lot of episodes, but guys, onto my opinion. It was a masterfully done series compared to Droids. I gotta say, it's not as good as Clone Wars, but it was really good, and it even used the art style of Clone Wars. Honestly, I loved it, and as soon as I finished the last episode a couple of days ago, this is the second time I've watched this series, but as soon as I saw that ending, I stood up, smiled, and oh my god, I fanboyed out. I loved this series. I loved all the connections to Legends material and to old games like Empire at War, Battlefront 2 2005, and The Force Unleashed. Sorry about that, guys. And it's just, I love this series. I think I even love it way more than Resistance, but that kind of is an unfair assumption, I'd have to say, because it just came out last year and it's still going, and it's about to get its second season. But I was also really happy to see the whole cast when they went up for Star Wars Celebration this year, and it just, I love this series, guys. And I don't know what to say about it. I mean, it's... I'm literally at a loss for words on how much great this series was. I mean, Dave Filoni is a master. I mean, he made the Clone Wars, he made that a really good show, and he made this. So, Disney, give him the presidentship already. Give him the job of president for Lucasfilms already. We need him to stay for a very long time if he's going to keep on making series as good as this. And I know this is getting really long, this episode, and I thank all of you for watching. And guys, I'm giving this a 10 out of 10. I am ranking it the exact same as Solo, because this is, and I'm ranking it as a TV show and as Star Wars material, not as a movie, because who would do that? And yeah, 10 out of 10 all the way. I have nothing else to say. Next week we will be doing Rogue One, and I guess thank you all who have joined my Instagram, which is Film Exorcist, and for all those who have watched our latest episode of Droids and many of our other episodes, thank you for watching, and thank you to all my 177 subscribers. I wish I could do something for you guys, but right now I'm kind of short on money. I lost my job, I'm trying to find another one, and this is basically all I have. So, thank you for watching. Good night, goodbye, and we'll see you next week with Rogue One. Have a great night, ladies and gentlemen.